Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am Josh Samuel, and on the line with me, ladies and gentlemen, is a good friend and a good brother of mine. His name is Jordan Ros. Brother Jordan, man, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. Brother Jordan, man, since the anniversary of this movie is well upon us, I wanted to talk about Avengers Endgame and the MCU as a whole. Starting out, man, what do you feel Avengers Endgame did most right as a movie?
I think most right would definitely be the climax, the end battle.
Mm,
Um, Everything great about the Marvel universe, about the Marvel movies, can totally be summed up in just that final battle, which is essentially watching these heroes come together
mm-hmm,
and kick ass. I mean, that's really what the movies are about, and it's this great grand spectacle.
mm-hmm,
Um, I don't care who you are. Uh, because I'm pretty sure when you saw everybody come through the portals, when you saw Captain America wielding the hammer of Thor,
mm-hmm,
uh, there was some part of you where your heart beat a little faster and you got excited.
mm-hmm,
Even if you're a total DC guy, even if you're totally not into comics, you gotta admit that is a great kind of use of spectacle and scale and just this great culmination of kind of this entire universe. That entire battle justified, I think, the existence of that whole universe in a huge way, just because of how grand and big it is.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody, like you said, everybody and their mother loved the portal sequence. I really liked their I wish he had been seen more. I really like their usage of Hawkeye in this, but I do wish he had been seen a little bit more. But I really liked his part in the movie as well. Having said that, brother Jordan, now you said that you binge watched the entire MCU. That's a job in itself, I know. Uh,
Yeah.
which movies do you think stood out to you the most?
Yeah. So binge watching them all was definitely an experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if you kind of like these movies, even if you're not a big fan, I think it's still worth to do
Mm-hmm.
just because you notice things and it feels a lot more like watching a TV show.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of a it's either a positive or negative depending on who you talk to.
Uh-huh.
Um, that all the movies kind of feel the same, and that's either a good or bad thing. But it definitely makes everything feel like it's a part of the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for me, though, the one that I really enjoyed didn't feel like a MCU movie. The ones that kind of felt a little more different, that tried something new, that had different visuals. Um, for me, though, I think the big standout one is Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, I think that's the best MCU movie. Everything's totally balanced. Everything is just works really well together. Everything comes together really nicely. I think that one for me is the best one. I also loved um, Iron Man 3. I thought Iron Man 3
Yes.
was the first one, like chronologically, that felt like a grown up movie. So
Mm-hmm.
you're watching it and you're like, oh, what's this? There's good cinematography. There's narration. There's some interesting choices that being made. It felt like more like a Shane Black movie than a Marvel movie, which I really appreciated. Winter Soldier, for that same reason, the Russo brothers did great with their debut into the Marvel universe. I mean, I can't really say anything new about it, but just everything about it is just super solid, super well done, super good. Doctor Strange is another one.
Yes.
Um, I had seen it once before, and when I rewatched it, I was like, "Oh, I realized why I don't remember this because 90% of the movie is just them fighting in these interdimensional set pieces, but it's like gorgeous and it's great,
Mm-hmm.
and the VFX are absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Good color grading,
Mm-hmm.
that looks amazing. And then the last two for me that really stand out would be I know that a lot of my DC fans are going to be upset. Thor Ragnarok. Uh, I love. I think now if you compare it to the original two Thors, the tone is completely different.
Right.
And if you prefer the other Thors, I absolutely see why you don't like this one.
Right.
I'm kind of coming at it as a Taika Waititi fan because I'm a huge fan of his stuff.
Okay.
And for me, it works as a Taika Waititi comedy.
Like a parody almost.
Yeah, it works really well if you look at it as a Taika film.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how he uses the score, the music. It's got an actually unique score for a Marvel movie, which is kind of like interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last, 20 minutes are like a Frank Frazetta painting, which is just absolutely gorgeous with the immigrant song that's being used. So that for me that's kind of why I put that up there. Just because whereas Marvel usually tries to do these comedy, action, adventure movies, no one does comedy like Taika Waititi. Like, he's one of the funniest filmmakers out there.
Mm-hmm.
With all his work. So I think he just does it better than any other MCU director who tries to do comedy.
Oh, wow.
The last one I would say is Black Panther.
Yes.
Best MCU score by far, best MCU villain. If we're only looking at the movies, and it's not even close at all. Like, in terms of villain and score, Black Panther is so far above them. Great themes that it tackles, great ideas, some good visuals. Some of the visuals aren't as amazing, but like it makes up for it in the story because it's a great story. So for me, those are all the standout ones for me. What about you?
Let's see. You called out about three of them. Black Panther, obviously. Love Ryan Coogler. The performances were amazing, and I completely agree with the graphics, especially the effects, especially towards the end with the end fight. It did look really cheap, but the costume design, the performances, Killmonger just being this epic villain. Uh, I know people were kind of hard on Chadwick Boseman in this one as opposed to how he was in Civil War, and I can kind of see that argument. But I challenge every one of those people to also go back and watch that scene where he confronts his ancestors in the astral plane. That scene is just beautiful and well acted, and yeah, Black Panther is just a really special film, not just for the obvious reason, but to me, it's just a very special film. Again, Doctor Strange is another one. Shout out to Scott Derrickson. I'm very sad that he won't get to do Doctor Strange too, because I feel like his ideas were probably gonna be something we haven't necessarily seen in an MCU film and probably won't see. But I do have love for Sam Raimi as well. Shout out to him. The first Guardians of the Galaxy is always one I mention, and I still vehemently defend. I'm kind of mixed on the second one, but I really love the first one. I think it did. It was a surprise when it came out. Nobody knew who these characters were, and nobody expected it to work. And taking those characters and giving it like a comedy mixed with emotion, it was really a surprise, and I really liked that one. Obviously the first Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk. A lot of Phase One, I really enjoy, and I don't think it gets enough credit. The Incredible Hulk is one I feel doesn't get enough credit. Um, Obviously the Winter Soldier and all the stuff on Netflix as well. Those are the ones that, as far as MCU goes, that come off the top of my head. Moving on, brother. And this should be an easy one given what you said about Infinity War. Do you think that the special effects were better in the Infinity War?
Ooh, I think. Well, I don't know because it's kind of different because Marvel's at a point now where they've kind of locked in their formula and they're just kind of putting it all through that. So there's some really there's like I would say 95% of Infinity War is absolutely amazing and gorgeous. But then there's a few like things here and there that kind of stick out.
Right.
Like Dr. Banner in the Hulkbuster suit. At times doesn't look amazing. Um, but like, take. I mean, no movie's perfect, and every movie has a couple of VFX shots that doesn't look amazing, and so I can't hold that against Infinity War. But I would definitely say Infinity War is one of the better looking visual effects that Marvel has had in their movies. I think it's a lot better than Endgame effects wise.
Gotcha.
How do you feel?
I feel like while I love the portal scene in Endgame, again everybody and their mother does. I think there were some shots where you could kind of see like the effects leaking through. So, and this at that with that, I have to look to Infinity War as being overall better. But Cap grabbing Mjolnir was also beautiful as well. So I'm not gonna completely knock the movie in those regards. I just think that they were slightly better in Infinity War, but it's not that big of a deal. Um, Brother Jordan, man, you talked about Thor Ragnarok, and I will admit I was one of those guys that came out swinging at the air like Cuba Gooding Jr. and Boys in the Hood. I was like, I was like, what is this? Why? You had this epic grand story that you could have just made so epic. It could have been, again, something that we haven't seen necessarily in the MCU, especially going over Thor's Norse mythology and all that. I've rewatched it since then, and I'm still kind of like, I don't know. I still kind of like the first one, but I am a little less, bitchy about it, I guess would be the term. Uh, talk to me. Why do you feel Thor Ragnarok is and for the audience, why do you feel that Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor film?
I think the huge reason is the humor.
Mm.
A big reason why we go to these MCU movies, as I think, as we've talked about many times before,
Mm-hmm.
humor is a huge part of it. It's an
Mm-hmm.
important part of these Marvel movies that they make us laugh, that they make us kind of feel good. And so, you know, Guardians did it great. I
Right.
think Iron Man 3 did it great. And I think Thor Ragnarok does it great. Those are three movies where I think the comedy is it's at its peak in terms of balancing the humor and making a really enjoyable, funny movie that makes you feel good afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's going after a specific thing, and I think Taika has a very specific sense of humor.
He does.
It's very specific, like if you watch What We Do in the Shadows or Hunt for the Wilder People or even like Eagle versus Shark. I think that was his first or second movie. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Very specific kind of humor. And we see a lot of that bleed through in Thor Ragnarok. And I think for part of the fun for it for me is seeing that really weird, quirky humor in this giant blockbuster that's like $200 million, which I think is just kind of crazy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is it a risk that they went to comedy? Not really, because that's kind of Marvel's thing. That's what they do now. But I think they made it. The humor in Ragnarok for me works better than any of the other movies, and that's just a matter of preference. That's just my opinion.
Right.
I love and for me the humor works better than the other movies, and I think there are parts of it where I definitely see they could have went in a completely different direction, because if we look at what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, he loses his hammer, he loses his father. Ragnarok like Asgard is destroyed, and it's turned into a comedy. And so, yeah, I can totally agree with people who are like, man, it wasn't epic. It was like this comedy buddy cop movie. It wasn't, I could definitely see why people would have wanted Game of Thrones in space, or Star Wars kind of tragedy, or Lord of the Rings in space. I
Mm-hmm.
can absolutely see that. And for those people, I would encourage you to look at the movie not for what you wanted it to be, but for what it is. And what it
Exactly.
is just a simple, mindless adventure movie, um, and with some awesome kick-ass action, with some great, gorgeous visual effects. I think the visual effects of Valkyrie taking on Hela. in the flashbacks.
Oh, that scene was beautiful.
That is the best visual effects we've seen in any Marvel movie.
Yeah.
I mean, in the MCU movies, by far, absolutely stunning. So come at it, attack this film, kind of as an adventure movie, as a comedy, as just kind of a Marvel movie, for lack of a better word, because that really sums it up well. You know, and are there faults with it? Yeah, sure. There's faults with every movie. And I think, some of the humor does detract just a little bit from the emotions of everything. I think the emotions of Guardians of the Galaxy works far better than in Thor Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
But Thor Ragnarok, in my opinion, is a funnier movie than Guardians 1. So it's kind of, it's a little push and pull, give and take with the tone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's just a matter of preference. But I'd really encourage people to watch it as almost a weird comedy that just happened to cost $200 million or however much it took to make the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's why Thor Ragnarok is successful, is because it's that specific weird type of humor and blended with all this crazy action and music and set pieces for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and Kate Blanchett was really good as Hela and everything. I wish they had done more with Carl Urban, but damn, bro, that was great, man. That was really great. Now I want to move on and talk a little bit about Tom Holland and Spider-Man in the MCU. Now, for those unaware, Spider-Man has swung through many versions of New York City. Previously, he was portrayed by Andrew Garfield in 2 respective films. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, and suddenly Sony decided they wanted to work with the mouse. So we were granted Tom Holland after much speculation. I think there was a rumor that Asa Butterfield was close to landing the role, something I would have supported. But we landed, we were granted Tom Holland. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming, I really enjoy. Michael Keaton was fantastic as Vulture. But Far From Home, Brother Jordan, I'm going to be honest with you. Is the word I'll use. Now, Jake Gyllenhaal, again, I really enjoyed him as Mysterio. Something I notice is I tend to enjoy the villains a lot more sometimes in MCU movies, and that's fine. But yeah, I really enjoyed Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. But there's something with the Spider-Man being in the MCU that is missing, that wasn't necessarily missing from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Now, for me, I guess the big thing is I want him to sort of be his own hero and not rely so much, not have so many callbacks to, Iron Man, which I understand Iron Man is kind of responsible for ushering him in, but I want to see him progress and take on these heroes or take on these villains as his own hero. And I understand too that he's 16. He's the youngest fresh-faced Spider-Man we've had in movies. But I just want to see him be Spider-Man on his own and a little less reliance on the Iron Man callbacks. With that said, brother Jordan, what do you think could be done better if you feel anything needs to be done differently with Spider-Man as a whole in the MCU?
Oh man, this is a whole nother video right here. I have so many feelings, and I'm not even sure if I've completely settled on it. Rewatching the movies, I think, it is a tricky task to introduce Spider-Man to this universe.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you don't know if you're going to get the rights, because that was the whole thing at the time was, are they going to get the rights? Are they talking? Are they not going to have Spider-Man? So I think it's impressive that they were able to integrate him into the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you kind of have to judge it on that basis. You can't judge that Spider-Man among, like, the other Spider-Man movies, right? Because The other Spider-Man movies, their job was to stand on their own as their own heroes. But
Mm-hmm.
this Spider-Man, his job, as you know, from the creative behind the scenes perspective, his job is to fit into an established world in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, you know, it's kind of, they are a completely different approach. There's a lot of things that Tom Holland's Spider-Man doesn't have, a lot of distinct characteristic things that we just don't see him do. Some of them aren't necessarily that important, like working for the Daily Bugle. Andrew Garfield didn't really work for the Daily Bugle.
Right.
He didn't. That wasn't a huge part of his thing. I don't think that's a absolutely essential thing to have to the character. But then there's other things that they don't have too, like Uncle Ben's murder. Which, again, if you look at it from a Spidey fan perspective, as someone who wants to see an accurate Spider-Man, it is kind of disappointing. It's like, wait, what? Why are they doing this? But then, if you look at it as how do you fit Spider-Man into the MCU? How is this not just, you know, all about Spider-Man, but how do we make Spider-Man work as much as he can within this universe? I think using Tony was kind of a smart idea, which a lot of people either hate or love. It's kind of like the Mandarin 3 twist in Iron Man 3, or the Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3. You know, it's a clever behind-the-scenes trick, which is either going to make or break it for some people. I go back and forth on it myself, but I think rewatching the movies, it did kind of make sense in terms of, you know, this whole universe started with Tony Stark. It made sense by the end of this Infinity Saga that Tony Stark had a, not sidekick, but he had an apprentice, so to speak. So he could pass on his knowledge, pass on his wisdom, pass on his legacy. And in that sense, I think Far From Home and kind of what they set up in Homecoming really works well as a part of Tony's story. And I think that really sums up why a lot of people don't care for the Tom Holland stuff so much, because Spider-Man is so much defined by Iron Man in the MCU movies. So, you know, that, I mean, sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't like it. I go back and forth on it pretty frequently, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of preference. But on one level, we have to admire that they were able to integrate him into the MCU movie in a new way, in a way that was different from the previous versions. And, you know, those deviations from the books shouldn't necessarily make us dismiss his portrayal entirely, because he's a great actor. He's doing good job. But for me, going forward, personally speaking, you know, taking a step back now, I would have to admit I do kind of prefer the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Shamik Moore, Miles Morales Spider-Man. I really love those takes on it, and part of why I love it is because they stand on their own.
Yes.
I think that's a big reason why, for me personally, when Spider-Man pops up in Civil War, it's like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. He's standing on his own. That's Spider-Man. We don't need to go into his origin. Blah blah blah. Right? I love, and it's just, here he is. We're not going into it, but he's the superhero that you know and love. And so, what happens then for me in Homecoming is it's almost a little bit of regression. Is he goes from being the super confident kid in Civil War, who totally steals the spotlight for the scenes that he's in, to being this obsessive, oh, Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark, how do I make you happy? How do I please you? Kind of thing. Which felt, I mean, makes sense for that character. You know, you think you're the hot stuff around town. You realize there's other heroes. You're interacting with them. You kind of get starstruck and want to interact. That makes sense. But for me, I'm more interested in seeing kind of his struggles revolve around, you know, do I be Spider-Man today, or should I take the test for school, or should I study?
Right.
Can I make my date with Mary Jane while stopping this bank robbery around town? Those are kind of the things that are a little more interesting to me. And so I would love to see some more of that in Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Having him stand on his own, having him kind of struggle with those issues of, you know, responsibility. and the whole kind of with great power comes great responsibility. His mantra, so to speak.
Right.
I think we're getting there because we see that Far From Home, where he just wants to be on vacation, but he can't because the job keeps coming up, the responsibilities keep coming up, which I really appreciate that. So, again, it's all a matter of preference, no right or wrong. Those are just my feelings. But I think going forward, I would love to just see some more Spider-Man stuff where he's not defined by Iron Man or not defined by the MCU. I'd love to see him in his own right kind of becoming front and center of this MCU. I think that would be a really cool thing to see and have it all revolve around him. Yeah.
That's great, man. It also is gonna greatly depend on Sony because obviously with their success with Venom and pending their success with Morbius, they're definitely gonna wanna swing him back their way for cameo appearances and possibly even versus films. So it is going to be as you said earlier, tricky going forward, but that would be great to see him lead the way in the MCU going forward. And yeah, hopefully they do just let him, be Spider-Man and not Iron Man Jr. I sincerely hope that that's the case. And they take things a little more seriously and less kiddie. But anyway, the now brother Jordan, man, I did this for someone who's also a good brother of mine. I did this because I like Brie Larson. I think she's a very, very good actress. I loved her in Just Mercy. Love her performances in Room and Short Term 12, which was where I was first introduced to Brie Larson. Shout out to Brie Larson. When she was cast as Captain Marvel, I was pretty excited. Then came the whole, shenanigans prior to the film, leading to the film's release, and she said some things that were considered unsavory to many individuals, and it kind of rubbed people the wrong way. I remember watching the trailer for Captain Marvel. I was like, the effects look nice. And then she said, I'm going to end it. And I'm like, okay. What are you going to end? Because this is supposed to be the beginning. So I saw the movie and I was just like, I respectfully said, this just ain't for me. Then I watched Endgame and the whole sequence with her going up against Thanos, really her being in Endgame alone. I was like, wow, okay. This is actually, her appearance here is actually a lot better to me. I actually like her performance better here with the short hair. Again, it's all preference, it's all opinions. It's not necessarily a knock. I don't hate Brie Larson for those listening. But with that said, do you feel that Captain Marvel was better in Endgame than her own film?
I kind of this. Why is Captain Marvel only in Endgame for like 5 minutes? I think like she's such a great. That's such a great character with so much potential and possibility.
Yeah.
That why is she only in 5 minutes of Endgame? That was a huge question on my mind rewatching the movies. I mean, I get that they have to you have to explain why she hasn't intervened in the last 20 years of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
With every world building threat, you have to be like, oh, why didn't Captain Marvel just do it? It's kind of that Superman problem. If Superman is around, why didn't he help out in Aquaman and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's tricky, and I bet there's a behind the scenes reason why, but I think they could have made it work. And to me, that was a huge disappointment of her not being in more of Endgame, because I think seeing her in Captain Marvel, she's finding out who she is. She's discovering herself, which is it's this great origin kind of. You're building up that character and setting it up.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you set her up, you can go anywhere with it. Now you aren't bound by necessarily having to establish things. Now you can just get into it, have fun with the character,
Mm-hmm.
and she isn't in Endgame. Like, she pops up at the very end, and I guess if they wanted it to be a surprise, I mean, I guess that's what they're going for. But I would have loved to see her tag along with the Avengers on their whole journey. So it's hard because I really loved what I saw her in Endgame, but we just saw so little of her, which is a huge bummer. I mean, we had more of. I feel like I don't know. I'm trying to think of other characters in it, but yeah, I just felt like a disproportionate amount of, or a what's the right way to say it? We didn't see enough of her, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think part of that was also, again, just I liked seeing her as an established hero more than her origin story, because by this point we've seen so many origin stories from the MCU that it's kind of like more or less all the same. Not that they're not unique, not that they're in their own right, not that they're not interesting. It's just, for me, sitting down and watching 24, 23 movies in a row, it's kind of, oh, another origin story kind of feeling. Nothing against the movie specifically, but just for me, I'm more interested in seeing the established hero. So I would say I prefer her in Endgame, personally.
Yeah.
Just because, we've kind of, the whole origin thing is a little been there, done that with the MCU. What do you prefer?
I definitely prefer her in Endgame. I was actually like, wow, if they had done, and they had battle sequences in Captain Marvel, but bro, I'm gonna be honest, I'm having trouble aside from maybe Jude Law and maybe a few scenes with Samuel L. Jackson. I had trouble remembering that movie. Like, how does Captain Marvel start, bro?
I'm gonna try to think about this without looking it up. See, that's another thing too. I think while Captain Marvel is it's one of it's a good movie, but I think it falls into the camp of just being a little bit. It's not a unique movie necessarily. The character is unique from the other heroes, absolutely, but the film itself, I think, isn't as it doesn't bring much fresh to the table.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of potential there, but I can't. See, I can't. I think it begins with a dream, if I remember correctly. I think Captain Marvel is dreaming about something, and see, I can't even remember. And that goes for a lot of MCU where I can't remember how it begins or ends. It's just kind of it's just kind of there.
Yeah, and that's just what it is. But yeah, to answer your question, bro, no, I ain't trying to question you for 50 hours. Yeah, I really loved that scene where she went up against Thanos in Endgame. I was like, holy shit, this is if Captain Marvel 2 shows more of this, her not backing down and less of the whole I'm gonna end it on the girl powerness and just makes it all like Fran said in his glorious rant last year. Shout out to Fran. Make it natural and make it more, as you used earlier, unique. Literally make it unique. I think Captain Marvel 2 has the potential to be something special. Nothing against those who liked it. I'm happy you enjoyed it. I legitimately get happy when I see people say stuff like, oh, I really love Ant-Man for such and such reasons, or I really love Iron Man 2. I don't care what anybody says. That genuinely makes me happy when somebody can have an opinion on something and not care about, being popular, getting downvoted, getting a dislike. That's like me, you, or Fran, or most everybody that comes to my channel. We're just people giving our opinions, and we don't care if you like it or not. That's just who we are. And I think that's a very important thing. And that's part of my motivational speech for today. Moving on. let me ask you this, brother Jordan. Who do you feel, talking about Captain Marvel and knowing that it's probably going to be her, unfortunately, who do you feel should hypothetically lead the Avengers next? Because I know you kind of said earlier that it would be cool to see Spider-Man, but If not Captain Marvel and not Spider-Man, then who?
You know, here's what they should do. No more Avengers. No Avengers whatsoever. You have Spider-Man, Daredevil,
Yep.
you have Elektra, you have Punisher, you have Iron Fist. You bring in the Defenders, and that's what you do. That's what I would say is they should do. Focus on incorporating those TV characters a little bit more.
Yes.
Probably won't do that, which really, really sucks. But in my ideal world, that's what they would do next. But I think they'll probably end up doing Fantastic Four kind of thing. They'll probably have a team with Fantastic Four, some of the X-Men, Spider-Man will probably be in there with probably like Reed Richards as the leader or something like that. But I would love to see a Defenders centric kind of universe going forward with kind of the ground level heroes.
That would be really cool. Especially, man, Charlie Cox is just so fucking good as Daredevil, man. It's unreal. Mainly all of them. Kristen Ritter, Mike Coulter. I have my reservations about Finn Jones. I'll just say I think he did. I think he did the best with what he was given, because I know the first season of Iron Fist was pretty rushed. So I think he did the best with what he had. But man, Charlie Cox is just so good as Daredevil. And yeah, I sincerely hope with Blade, Moon Knight, and apparently She-Hulk and a few others, I hope they and even Deadpool, I hope they at least consider giving folks some R-rated stuff or TVMA type stuff, because I'm pretty sure they're either going to incorporate Daredevil into the movies, or they're going to just, continue the shows on Disney Plus, or probably both. I'd imagine they're probably going to do both, but obviously once the rights expire starting this year, we'll see. Man, what are some of your favorite moments in Endgame, man?
The end battle, I would say. Just that moment when as soon as they look outside and they're like, "Did we do it, guys? I think we brought him back." And then hellfire just rains down on the Avengers headquarters. From that point on to the death of Tony Stark, just everything there is just absolutely perfect. Think what else? You know what? That's it.
I'll go for you, man, because I'll go for you. You've been doing a hell of a lot of talking, and I'll go for you. Obviously the portal sequence, chill bumps all over, goosebumps all over, seeing all the heroes come back, even though it's gonna happen at some point in this 3-hour movie. It's still, they did it in such an epic way. Cap wielding Mjolnir, and then obviously that moment when he says Avengers assemble. That shit is just crazy, and then the score starts playing. I really enjoyed Hawkeye, and again, I wish they had used more of him in the movie. I feel like he's been an underused character in the MCU, but I really like the scenes with him and Natasha, who deserved a funeral. What else? And yeah, seeing Fat Thor, Iron Man, and especially Cap, man, he really took a fucking beating. Seeing them all square off against Thanos, and again, the moment with Captain Marvel going up against Thanos, I really enjoyed those sequences, and even the one with Scarlet Witch trying her hand at Thanos, which I think she probably was. I don't think we saw the full scale of her abilities in the movie, and I don't think we have so far. Why, I don't really know, but I do think Wanda is a lot stronger than what we've seen in the movies. And it's also weird that she went from Russian to speaking Russian to now speaking American, but that's another video. Man, let me ask you this. Who are your favorite MCU villains?
The best one, in my opinion, in terms of the movies. Um, you know, I'm trying to think of who else is a villain. I mean, there are other villains who are like portrayed well, but they aren't necessarily deep or intellectual villains. Like Hela, great, cool looking villain, just isn't very they don't go very deep with the character in that one. Thanos would probably be a close second because he just, Infinity War essentially was the Thanos movie, which is kind of cool. So I definitely say Thanos would probably be in there. I hesitate to say Loki because he's kind of
anti-hero.
Yeah, he's not really much a villain. I mean, even in Avengers, he wasn't really the main villain. And since then, he died a hero, so he's not. I wouldn't even say he's a villain. I mean, aside from those ones, you'd have to just go with Kingpin from the Daredevil TV show.
Yes.
But I don't even know if they consider those TV shows in the MCU anymore. But yeah, I'd say for me, Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther, best villain in the movies so far.
Gotcha. Yeah, King Vincent D'Onofrio is Kingpin. Another something else, especially with Spider-Man being in the MCU. Something else I hope they, explore and tackle going forward. Yeah, those are some great choices. Man, did you think that now I hesitate to ask this because I know people gonna be, oh, what you mean? Do you think that Iron Man's death was satisfactory? And the reason I ask that is because we know that watching the movie Endgame, we know that one main Avenger is gonna die. We just don't exactly know if it's Cap or Iron Man. However, if you read some of the leaks of the movie prior to the movie releasing, you knew it was Iron Man, and it was also pretty obvious at the point when Doctor Strange said that there was only one possibility out of however many million that, oh yeah, he's about to fucking die. So, do you think it was satisfactory? Because people were saying, oh, give Robert Downey Jr. the Oscar. Where's the Oscar for Endgame? The Oscars are full of shit. Fuck you, Martin Scorsese. I'm like, wow. What did you think about his death, man?
I'm gonna say this is my opinion. This is gonna be a little bit controversial.
Go ahead. I love it.
I never cared for the character of Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. plays him absolutely amazingly. No one else could do it.
Right.
But when I was, 12 or 13 years old and I saw Iron Man 1 in the theaters for the first time, I was like, oh, that kind of sucked. That's just my opinion.
Dang, bro.
Like, that's nothing against the filmmaking or the movie itself or Robert Downey Jr. It's a great, fun movie, great portrayal of the character, but I never personally cared for the Tony Stark character. And I think a part of that is a little bit has to do with just kind of the choices that they've done with the character since the first Iron Man. I think his arc as a character kind of ends after Iron Man 3. And from that point on, he's just kind of there to be kind of the boss. I mean, yes, he does go through changes in perspective. He does go through experiences like we should control all the world. We should have Iron Man suits patrolling everything, and then coming head to head and creating Ultron, and then arguing with Captain America and all that stuff. But for me, it wasn't enough to make me care about his death personally. Like, I know there was people crying in the theaters and freaking out, which that just shows you that it's a well done, great character for other people. This character's touched a lot of people in the world. For me personally, I just didn't. It didn't do much for me. That character has never really done a whole lot for me, because I think a lot of the interesting stuff that they do with the character ended after Iron Man 3, and from that point on, he was just kind of a general Avenger who was there. Um, that being said, though, the films are they do set it up in Endgame to kind of give his sacrifice meaning, give it purpose, and especially with Spider-Man, with the other Marvel movies, they give it kind of this sense of he's passing on the torch and legacy.
Mm.
So it is an effective death. It is an effective moment in the MCU. Just for me, it didn't do a whole lot for me personally. And I know that's controversial. I know that not everyone will agree with me, but hey, that's cool. Like, I'm happy if you enjoyed it. It's cool if you didn't enjoy it too. What? It's just your opinion.
Right.
What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, when I saw Doctor Strange, who I really wish it was either him, T'Challa, or like you said, Reed Richards leading the way going forward. But I know that's not likely gonna be the case because girl power. But yeah, Iron Man's death in Endgame. Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't really moved by it. I was like, oh shit, he's fucking dying. Oh shit, there's Spider-Man crying again. Oh damn, Pepper's got to watch her husband die. So I was like, I didn't cry or anything. I for comparison, I felt more emotion in Infinity War than I did in Endgame. Aside from the portal sequence, which again is great on its own, I really didn't have that much emotion at his death or his funeral. I thought it was beautifully done for the moment and for the movie, but for me personally, I didn't like feel anything. I was like, okay, R.I.P. Tony Stark. Thanks for, three movies in a very good, not that good to underrated trilogy. Thanks for your appearances in these Avenger movies, your quippy one-liners, and yeah, man, we'll see you in Doctor Dolittle, which no one saw. So. Yeah, it didn't do much for me, but like you, man, for the people that it did, make emotional. I know a girl at my job that used to work at my job said she got so emotional. I was like, oh, really? Okay. I'm happy that Iron Man means so much to you and is somebody that people can look up to because everybody has their own idea of what a hero is and who he or she should be. And for some people, that's just Iron Man. Um, Finally, brother Jordan, and I say the best for last. I like to end things with a bang, so to speak, and I feel like this part is gonna take a very long time, but go right ahead, take as long as you need. What are some things? What are some things you feel the MCU can do better as a franchise?
Oh, how much time you got, sir? How much time do you got? Holy crap! You asked the question of the day. The question that I've been asking since day one.
Oh
Oh my
Lord.
goodness. Uh, no. Okay. So for me, again, this is a matter of preference. I think those. I think we went over this last week in the last few weeks when we talked about MCU here and there.
Mhm.
So, and the MCU created a very specific kind of genre of blockbuster, very specific style of movies, superhero movie. Um, you know, they're movies that are generally filled with lots of humor. They're movies that are very bright and colorful and generally lack any interesting cinematography or color grading. They're movies where the music isn't very distinct. The villain is usually generic with a kind of weak motivation that they don't explore very much.
Right.
And they don't dive deep into the characters very much. It's not about the characters and the moments or their arcs or their journeys. It's more or less about spectacle and how do we get this hero to fight this hero? And how do we evoke comic book iconography to make fans get excited um, and kind of create this giant spectacle?
Yeah.
So what I would love to see from the MCU, I would love to see better cinematography like they had in Winter Soldier or Doctor Strange or Iron Man 3. I would love to see less humor. I
Yes.
think humor is absolutely, let's not use that as a go-to thing. Doctor Strange was a great serious movie, but the humor in that felt so out of place, absolutely out of place. That it just distracted it from the
Mm-hmm.
whole serious tone of the movie. Um, and I think again, people had problems with Thor Ragnarok because of because of the humor, because it took the death of Thor, I mean the death of Odin, the destruction of his hammer, the destruction of Asgard, turned it into a joke. Even
Mm-hmm.
Fat Thor in Endgame, great great use of that character. Give him kind of fear, give him anxiety, make him retreat into just binging, gorging himself with food. Great direction to use the character, but they use it as a joke. And the moment when he realizes he's still worthy, it doesn't feel as earned as it could have been. It doesn't feel like this great personal win for his character because they've used his size as a joke for the most of the movie. So I would say let's go in another direction now. Let's have less reliance on humor. Let's tackle things with a more serious direction because I think that while it is easy to fail doing that, it's easy to make people laugh. It's a fairly, while there is a skill and artistry to it, I think it's a lot more difficult to make people feel emotional for a character. A lot more difficult to make them experience the same journey that the character does and their highs and all their lows. And I think when you make that work, it makes the catharsis of coming to the end of that character's journey so much better than if you just use jokes the entire time and replace that for a character arc. Um,
Yes.
so I would say less. Let's see less humor. Not that I'm not saying no humor. I'm not saying don't have humor at all or humor's bad. I'm just saying let's try something different from now on. Let's get a little more serious. Um, Music, another thing I talked about. Ludwig Göransson, or however you pronounce his name, he did incredible on Black Panther. Bring him back for movies. Um, let's hear some more unique sounds. I mean, these heroes are supposedly from all over the world, all over the universe. They should all have distinct themes and melodies and tunes and even cinematography that should reflect that. So let's see some more distinct what you call it formal elements of filmmaking. I want to see some more interesting, more unique things for each specific character because there's no reason in hell that no reason that Spider-Man should be shot the same way as Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is this cosmic, you know, galactic superhero who's traveling through the universe. And Spider-Man is just this friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. There's no reason why those films should be shot the same way. There's no reasons why those films should have the same cinematography, other than the reason that they belong in the same universe. Um, they should really lean into the uniqueness of each hero and make it kind of lean into the genre of each hero to kind of give it that give the characters their films their own distinct character and personality and traits. Um, Geez, what else? What else? What else? Um, I would say don't be afraid to spend less money on movies too. Like I know that's a crazy notion for you, Disney. I know you're probably not going to listen, but you know, Black Widow is a spy. Like she's a spy. Like she's James Bond essentially.
Right.
I don't know how much that budget was, but I'm guessing it wasn't cheap. It wasn't like super. You know, I'm guessing, and from the looks of the trailers, it didn't look like they toned down the action when Black Widow was flying through the air with the breeze all around her. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can absolutely do a Black Widow movie for $50 million. Totally.
True.
Even 100 million. I know that's even still that's a lot of money, but not for Disney. That's about half of what they usually spend. You strip down all the spectacle, strip down away all the comic book iconography, strip away all the effects, all of that. Make an interesting movie with as little resources as you're willing to make. And I know it's Disney; they want to spend everything, but I'm serious. You can get some really interesting stuff if you just take away everything. That's what was kind of interesting about Iron Man 3. And I know it's kind of hypocritical because Iron Man 3 cost probably about $200 million,
Mm-hmm.
but most of that movie is Tony Stark walking around without a suit. right? That's
Mm.
an interesting thing to do with the character. Take away that element, that 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 thing that we think makes them the hero. So strip away all the kind of nonsense, excess stuff that you need. Spend less money so you can take more risks. Because if you spend $250 or $300 million, you're even, at least to make that money back. Um, so so reduce your spending so that way you can take more risks, do more interesting things, and if you make an amazing Black Widow movie for $50 million, that movie's going to make so much money that it might even make $1 billion. We don't know. So, and it'll be so much more profitable than if you spent all that money on it. So, I think top of my head, those are the things that I would like to see the MCU do better. Is just focus on the characters a little bit more, make their filmmaking itself a little more unique.
Mm-hmm.
Rely less on humor, and it'd be cool to see some more risks taken with that franchise.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I got to say. What do you think they should do better going forward?
Literally everything you said. I think back to Ant-Man. Shout out to Peyton Reed for his success with both movies. I'm not even going to get in a rant. I think of filmmakers like Edgar Wright, more recently Scott Derrickson, and even Ava DuVernay was rumored to be, being courted for Black Panther initially. Thank God it was Ryan Coogler, but I think the reasoning and the common reason is that the MCU and these filmmakers have different ideas of what the characters in their movies should be. And it's evidence that Kevin Feige's input on these films is a lot greater than we realize, even with him just being a producer. I know he's got this Marvel encyclopedia stapled to his brain, and I'm sure he knows literally everything about the characters, but I feel like his influence and input on these movies is a big reason why we don't see what you alluded to earlier with risks. We don't see a lot of risks with these movies. I know people say, well, Endgame was a risk. What are you talking about? Infinity War? I'm like, no, not really in the grand scheme of things. No, not really. When you have DC doing a movie like Joker, doing it like you said for a smaller budget of 50 or so million and then grossing $1 billion, Marvel has an array of characters they could do something similar with. Noah Hawley, for example, who was intent on doing a Doom film for Fox until Fox became Disney Fox, which now it likely won't happen. That's a great example of something that Marvel could potentially use to their advantage, a small budget. So, with that all said, yeah, I'd like to see more risk going forward. I'd like to see more edgier stuff. I know we talked a little bit about the Defenders earlier. With Deadpool being incorporated in, guys, I don't want to see a PG-13 Deadpool again. I know people gonna say, "Oh well, the PG-13 rating can work for Deadpool." I'm like, no, I want to see R-rated stuff in the MCU or Marvel Studios or whatever you want to call it. They're gonna be doing Blade, Moon Knight, She-Hulk. I don't want to see joke after joke after joke after joke, because after a while, after watching all these movies, it gets kind of old. It's not interesting, and it's not as unique as people claim it is, at least for me. And that's not taken away from anybody's enjoyment. That's just a matter of opinion. Um, and like I said about filmmakers, although I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon, if ever, with Disney and Kevin Feige, I hope they let the filmmakers have more creative freedom going forward, because it's highly evident, especially with Scott Derrickson leaving Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that that just ain't the case. They have to make the movie according to how Kevin Feige and Disney wants it made, and have it tie in to everything as opposed to it being its own thing. So it just feels like you're watching an episode. So to sum it up, again, like most of what you said, more creative risk, less humor, um, and just, less of Kevin Feige would be nice. I know he's responsible for the success of the MCU. Yeah, and just more creative risk. Their success, the MCU success with all the movies they've done so far. I mean, it's been nothing short of brilliant. I think the last 3 to 5 movies have grossed well over $1 billion. Far From Home, which is technically a Sony movie, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, but obviously both of the Avengers movies. So that's 4 movies that have grossed $1 billion. Their success, you can't deny their success, and a large part of that success is due to Kevin Feige. But I just want to see less humor in a lot of the movies. And again, for those that like it, I'm not saying that you're wrong for enjoying it. That's just a matter of preference. When I see another studio can be successful and have more, unique takes on characters, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Marvel could be doing this with, let's say, Moon Knight, which they probably, I hope they will do at the very least with this series, or a character like Punisher, or a character like Hulk. That's a whole nother conversation about the Hulk. So yeah, I hope some things change going forward, not to knock their success. And yeah, that's pretty much the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen. To those of you that enjoy Endgame, we're happy for you. For those of you that enjoy the MCU, we're exceptionally happy for you. With that being said, we're about to close out this video. Brother Jordan, man, thanks for stopping by and collaborating with me. I'll leave a link to his Twitter in the description. And yeah, remember, ladies and gentlemen, do not get triggered, or maybe the term should be do get triggered and let your feelings be known. And we'll see you all next time. Peace.